Welcome back to Hudson Appliance in downtown Hudson for another episode of Wicked Good Food. I'm your host, Matt Williams, and today it's all about grilled cheese. Grilled cheese is one of these things that most of us grew up eating. It's a great, relatively inexpensive, really quick meal to make. But we're going to take a pretty inexpensive, really quick twist on it. We're also going to bring it to another level, and we're going to make what, to me, my ultimate grilled cheese. So in order to make this ultimate grilled cheese and the other ones we're going to make today, I've got actually 8 different cheeses we're going to work with. So cheese is one of those things that is as varied as you can possibly imagine. But when you're picking cheeses for a grilled cheese or picking cheeses for anything, don't be afraid to try new ones, but always ask some questions and see kind of how it's going to behave. We know how a cheddar melts, and you could ask your cheesemonger or ask the guy behind the cheese counter at the supermarket, how is this cheese going to melt? How's it going to taste? So the old standby is this. I've got a stack of white American cheese. American cheese gets a bad rap sometimes. I don't use it for many things, but I do use it for grilled cheese. It's great. It melts really, really well. It's designed to melt super well. Here I've got a hunk of Brie. So this is a bloomy rind cheese, so it has a little bit of mold on the outside that grows that rind. We're going to use the inside of it. Once it warms up a little more, it's going to be almost spreadable. Here I've got some sliced mozzarella. So when we make our ultimate grilled cheese, this is going to kind of give that stringiness when you take the pieces apart, like you're biting into or taking a piece of hot pizza out of the box. I've got some Swiss cheese here. I like Swiss because it has a little bit of a bite to it. I have Gruyere, which is another kind of Alpine cheese like Swiss, which has a little stronger bite. So this we're actually going to shred before we put it in our sandwich. To mix it up a little bit, I have a smoked mozzarella. This is an applewood smoked mozzarella. And you can see if you look at it that the outside has a different color than the inside where I cut it. And that's because they actually take and smoke it. You can see on the bottom there's a spot where the rack was. And as they smoked the cheese, it added some color to it. So we're going to slice some of this and use it in a sandwich. We're also going to use some cheddar, which I have shredded here because I like the way it melts better when it's shredded than when it's a big thick piece, but you could slice it pretty thin too. And Parmesan. So Parmesan cheese is not a cheese that people think about an awful lot for grilled cheese, but once I show you what we're going to do with it, you might be a convert to what we're going to do. So one of the grilled cheeses we're going to make is going to have caramelized onion in it. So that's the first thing we're going to start. So I just have an onion here. I'm going to cut off the stem end and the root end this time. Usually when we dice it, we leave that root end on. We'll cut it right in half. Peel it. So I'm going to take and just kind of starting at an angle, cut relatively thin. Because what I'm thinking about here is how is someone going to eat this? If it's a really thick piece of onion, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to eat. Actually, now that I'm thinking about how to eat it, I'm going to cut these all in half once too. And we'll do this guy here too. All right, now there's a little rotten part of my onion right in the middle there, so I'm going to look through. And then I'm just going to take a little knob of butter. That's about a tablespoon worth or so. Stick it in this pan that I have warm. It's not very hot, but I'm going to heat it up a little bit more and put our onions right in. So you've heard me talk before about sweating vegetables, and I'm sure you've all heard the word sautéing. So we're kind of doing something in between those. So we don't have a really, really high heat where we're going to get a ton of color quickly that's just on the outside. And we don't have or our goal is to not have super low heat, where all we're going to do is kind of sweat and have all the liquid come out. So we're going to start, it'll be kind of like sweating, but we're going to let it keep cooking and keep cooking and keep cooking until we get this wonderful, dark, rich, yummy onion. So we're going to make just a super basic grilled cheese. So one of the cool things about grilled cheese is we just talked about all these different cheeses. I've got 3 different breads up here we can use. You'll notice that I don't have a loaf of sliced white bread. We don't use sliced white bread at my house very often, so we'll have different breads around. We do have burger buns around. These are actually fresh baked ones from Valley Tech. You can use this for a grilled cheese. I don't know if you've ever gone into one of those kind of higher end burger places, and they'll actually make you a grilled cheese, and this is what they do. They'll take one of their burger buns, cut it in half, turn it like this, whoops, like that, and make your grilled cheese. And it makes a great grilled cheese. It's just you have the crust on the top and bottom, but you don't even know that it's on the inside. But if you wanted to, you could take a piece of bread like this carefully and go through and cut part of it off, like that. And you do the same thing with the top. Now you don't want to go too deep on the top because it's kind of mounded. You don't want to make your piece of bread too thin. But I know at my parents' house, my mom's always got like a bag of burger buns in the freezer, or hot dog buns. You can make a grilled cheese out of any of those. So we're gonna make a real simple grilled cheese here. Let me cut one more of these down a little bit. It's easier to cut the top and bottom off before you cut it in half. When you do this, this little pinky and this thumb need to stay up in the air. Don't let them go down here or they're gonna make your bread look awfully funny. So I'm gonna take another little bit of butter here into this pan. So for this one, we're just gonna do American cheese. Super, super basic. Move this around a little bit. And if you want, by cutting this part off, your bread's gonna work more like a sponge now. So if you wanted to get a little bit extra butter on there, you can actually throw these down on the side that you plan to have be the inside and toast that first. It'll actually make your grilled cheese cook a little more quickly, because the place where you're putting your cheese is actually warm before you put your cheese on. So we'll crank this puppy up a little bit. Now if you look over here at our onions, if you can hear them, they're just starting to make a little bit of noise. So at this point we're sweating them. I'm going to turn our temp up on this just a bit and keep an eye. Now I do want to add a little bit of salt, so I'm going to add a pinch of salt. And we'll throw in a little bit of pepper too, fresh ground black pepper. Now some people will actually take and add brown sugar to their onions or white sugar to the onions or some other sugar, and the sugar caramelizes, which is a good thing. But you don't actually need to. If you just take your time, it's gonna work out great for you. Now we've got actually a little bit of color on there already, so I'm gonna flip these over. And so you might be like, well, everybody knows how to make grilled cheese. Well, hopefully everybody knows how to make grilled cheese, but we're gonna make these real simple, and then I'll show you what we're gonna do with them. Last year for Christmas, we were always invited to a Christmas Eve party at my wife's family's house. And they know I'm a chef, and I brought some kind of cool stuff in the past, and so I always feel a little bit of pressure to come up with something kind of cool or interesting or different. But last year I did something that I had never done before, but I actually made cream of tomato soup, which we made on one of the very first episodes of Wicked Good Food. And I made a really, really good, really simple grilled cheese on some crusty bread so it would hold up. I brought that to the party and I cut the bread, like we're gonna do here, into these little strips, and we served it like fondue. And so you would grab a piece of grilled cheese, you dip it right in, and it was great because people were in some people are actually in tuxedos, so they're trying not to make a mess of themselves. But you dip it right into the soup, and oh, what a great, fun little appetizer. So if you're gonna make them and you wanna make them quickly, a way to do it is don't build your whole grilled cheese first. Have your two sides like this, and then fold them over on each other. But we're gonna take a couple minutes, we'll let these grilled cheese keep on grilling. We'll get ready to start with some of our other sandwiches and keep our onions caramelizing. All right, so our onions are just starting to get a little bit of color on them, which is what we want. So I'm gonna leave those be and let them keep cooking. These first two grilled cheeses, they look perfect. It's awesome. I mean, this is just a hamburger bun. So one of the cool things about making grilled cheese, you can kind of see it off to the side, is when the cheese falls out and kind of starts bubbling up on there. But these are done. So I'm gonna take these. I've got a regular sheet pan with a wire rack. I'm gonna stick them on there. This little caramelized piece, we'll put to the side because I'll eat that. But I'm gonna stick these in a 200-degree oven. So the next one we're going to work on is going to be a ham, apple, smoked mozzarella. And we're gonna use this rosemary extra virgin olive oil boule. So a boule is just a round loaf. So first thing we'll do is we'll cut some bread. So that's good for a snack. So cut your bread as thick or as thin as you want. You know, these are not pressed sandwiches. We're not making them in a panini grill, so they're not going to get much smaller than what you make them. Remember, the thicker the bread, the longer it's going to take for the heat to transfer through the bread to actually melt your cheese. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If you like really thick bread, just know that once you get it perfectly brown, you might have to stick it in the oven to finish the rest of the cheese melting. All right, so the bread sliced for this. Take our apple and peel it. For what we're gonna do, we're gonna put raw apples on there. So that's gonna give us a little bit of crunch. I wanna make sure they have a chance to warm up, but I'm not worried that they have a little crunch to them. If you wanted, you could take them and roast them. You could saute them. All right, I'll do that same on the other side. So we've got our apples, and this is that smoked mozzarella that I was talking about earlier. And you can see, especially as I slice it some more, you can see the difference between the inside and the outside. It's a very big contrast. So I want to slice enough that will cover all our bread. That should be good. All right, so to build this grilled cheese, this pan is warm still, but I'm going to turn it on a little bit higher. Once again, I'm going to use a little bit of butter. Put some butter into my pan, and you can see it started to melt right away. So for this, I'm going to take my 2 pieces of bread, put them in there and get some butter on them. Then I'm going to actually do cheese next. I'm going to kind of layer my cheese. It doesn't have to be perfect, because if we do this correctly, our cheese is going to melt and it's going to spread out a little bit for us. Now, if you don't like smoked cheeses, don't use smoked mozzarella. Especially this, a real smoked mozzarella, because it's going to be pretty smoky. All right, and then we'll take our apple slices, put them right on there. And it's fine to break your apple and make it fit. We're just going to do 1 layer. And so I'm going to move these around a little bit. And to help speed up the process here, I'm going to actually take our ham and throw it right in the pan. You can hear it, and you can actually see it start to bubble a little bit. And so what will happen here is, because the ham is hot, it'll be heating our sandwich from the outside, from both of the outsides, but also it'll be help melting our cheese from the middle. Whenever you build a sandwich, in particular something that's going to have a lot of moisture, you want to have some sort of fat on the bread. And in this case, it's cheese, or it could be mayonnaise if you're building another kind of sandwich. What that's going to do is that actually forms a barrier that's going to prevent moisture from going from whatever has moisture into it into your bread, and it'll help keep your sandwich from getting too soggy. I'm going to use the same tongs, because why not? Who doesn't like caramelized onions? So we'll stick that on there. We'll do another one. All right, so I'm going to warm up this ham. We'll put this on here, flip it over, finish cooking this one. Our caramelized onions, we're being patient. It's going to take a little bit longer for us, but we'll get ready to make our caramelized onion sandwich and my ultimate grilled cheese. All right, so you can see our onions have turned kind of a little bit tan, a little bit almost khaki to them. So we're gonna let those keep on going, just let them keep cooking. Here, we've got this beautiful grilled cheese. This is really exciting. Oh, it's good. So I'm gonna take this guy and pop it right into our oven with our other grilled cheese. Now, we're on to what's, to me, my ultimate grilled cheese. So I'm going to take this. So this is a cheddar cheese and garlic loaf. So I'm going to cut off the end, which I'll eat later, and cut my slices. Going for a 1/2 inch or so thick. Beautiful. I'll just move that out of the way. And you can see there's little bits of cheddar in there, which are actually going to brown a little bit in the pan. It smells really good. Okay, so we talked about the cheeses we were going to put on this, but there's a little bit different technique that we're going to use to do this. So we're going to start, you might think this is a little weird, but we're going to start by adding some mayonnaise to the bread. Now don't freak out if you hate mayonnaise, all right? You're never going to know this mayonnaise was ever there, but it's going to perform an important job for us. So I'm going to put a little bit on, and then use the back of my spoon to essentially scrape it off and spread it around. So it's not, it might have seemed like a lot of mayo I put on there at first, but we're going to scrape it down like that. Now, if all of a sudden you find that you don't have butter and you want to make a grilled cheese, you can make a great grilled cheese by just doing this and sticking it right in the pan. And people will never know. Hopefully my wife doesn't watch this episode, but I do that to her and she hates mayonnaise and she's never known. Okay. Now what this is going to do is it's going to work almost like glue for us. And you might say, well, what are we going to glue on there, Matt? Well, we're going to take this plate and we're going to put some Parmesan cheese on the plate. Get our pan prepared first. So I'm going to add a little bit of butter to our pan. Again, spread it around a bit, we'll let that melt. Then I'm going to take the bread and take the mayonnaise side and put it right in to the Parmesan cheese. And you can see that it gets pretty well coated with the cheese. And if you remember back to a couple shows ago, we made an aioli. And an aioli is essentially a garlic mayonnaise. And if you remember what went into that, it was oil, and oh, check that out. It's a big roasted clove of garlic that came out of the bread. I'll eat that later too. But it was oil and egg yolks. So that oil that's in there is going to melt, and it's just going to go into the bread just like our butter is doing. So I'll stir this around just a bit. All right, so that's stage one. We'll put our bread in, cheese side down. Okay, so now at this point, our bread's starting to warm up, so we're going to go ahead with our cheeses. So we are going to add to this some Gruyere cheese. We're going to add some mozzarella cheese. Like I said, it's going to give us a little bit of stretch. We are going to add some cheddar cheese. So we're going to start off by adding mozzarella right to it. And we're going to cover one of the 2 pieces of bread just with mozzarella. So that'll be the bottom of one sandwich, that'll be the bottom of the other sandwich. And you can go up to your deli and ask for mozzarella cheese and just say, hey, can you slice it? Can you just give me 2 slices that are 1/4 of an inch thick? And that's fine, just like that. Then for the Gruyere, we're actually going to take and grate this a bit. It'll help it melt a little better. So we're going to take, and I'm going to put some of this right on top. Oh, it smells great. And I want to spread it, and I don't mind at all if a little bit of it kind of is hanging over the edge, because I love it when the cheese kind of drips down. So to our other side, we're going to put Swiss cheese on the other side, like that, and then we'll add our shredded cheddar. But use whatever cheeses you like. You know, if you really like that smoked mozzarella, use that. You could do it with all mozzarella if you wanted. If you get you really like a spicy cheese, you get some of that, like pepper jack or some of the ones with some of the really hot peppers in it. Do that. So just like for all our other grilled cheeses, we're going to let this cook for a couple minutes till we brown it up. Don't worry, I'm definitely going to show you what happened to all that Parmesan cheese on the outside, but we'll get them built, and then we have one more grilled cheese before we get Arthur up here and see what he thinks of our grilled cheeses. All right, so our caramelized onions are caramelized to my liking here. One of the things you'll notice is, look how few onions there are compared to when we started. It's because a lot of the moisture in those onions has cooked out and evaporated, but that just intensifies the flavor. This is what I'm most excited about. Check these sandwiches out. So that mayonnaise, you don't see any mayonnaise on there anymore. The spots where it had really good contact with the pan, there's great little bits of crunchiness. You can see that it dripped down and it's bubbling on the side. So we'll take this off, put these over here with our other grilled cheeses, which are looking awesome. Oh man. So we're gonna pop this back in our warming oven. One more sandwich to make here. All right, so one thing I do wanna do is I wanna just go through, scrape the cheese out of this, it's still in there. So one of the cool things about being in the restaurant industry is you get to eat all sorts of stuff that no one else gets to eat. And one of my favorite things to eat, and I would say this is probably true for almost any chef, is stuff like this. Little bits that don't quite make it on the plate, that might look a little ugly, or little bits of a roast that might be a little crunchy. But man, pull those little bits off there. So I'll eat those two in a little bit. All right, so our last grilled cheese. Really simple. We're gonna use that same bread we used for the ultimate. And check that out. That's a huge clove of garlic right in there. I don't think I want that big of a clove in this particular grilled cheese though. So we've got our bread cut, a little bit of butter in our pan again. Spread it around, let it melt. And we'll put our pieces of bread in. Spread those around. Oops. And you know what? We'll make two of these. I always try to, when I'm making the grilled cheese too, I always try to think of how I'm gonna put it back together. So if I can just fold this part on this part, the bread's kind of the same shape, rather so that it folds and has the same contour. If you have a perfectly square piece of bread, it doesn't matter. All right, so I have this Brie. I threw this in the microwave for like 10 seconds just to warm it up a little bit, and it totally melted like crazy on me. So I'm gonna scrape it, and this is gonna go right on our bread. We'll do the same thing here with all these. So if you're not a Brie lover, well, you know what I'm gonna say, it's gonna be don't use Brie. But if you like something like a cream cheese or goat cheese, you know, think about, the possibilities really are endless with the grilled cheese. I mean, you've essentially got a piece of bread and some sort of cheese and some sort of fillings or toppings. So be creative, play around. All right, so some of these caramelized onions. These smell awesome. Smell so, so good. So one thing I did do that you didn't get to see was I added a little bit of chicken stock to the onions during our last break, and that just kind of, it deglazed the pan. It soaked up some of the little brown things that were on there, and all those little brown stuff ended up back on our onions. So we're gonna take one more break. I'm gonna finish this sandwich. I'm gonna warm up some tomato soup. We'll get all 4 of our grilled cheese varieties cut up, and we'll get Arthur up here, and we'll see what he thinks.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, Arthur, how are you?
Welcome back to Hudson Appliance.
Well, thanks for having me. Another beautiful day in downtown Hudson here. So today, ultimate grilled cheese.
Oh,
I heard you're a grilled cheese guy.
Oh, I am a grilled cheese guy. Can you
All
tell?
right.
Okay.
So they might look similar, but believe it or not, there's 4 different types of grilled cheeses here.
All
All right. So we'll start with this one here. This is a really basic one. It's American cheese and bread with a little bit of butter, but that's actually made on a hamburger roll.
Okay.
And you'd never know. So looking at these now, you'd never know. This is designed to dip into that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So then this guy here, this is green apple, ham, and smoked mozzarella.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, it's really good. You can see all the little drips of cheese. That's what was getting us excited as we were looking at it.
All right.
This one here is some beautiful caramelized onions. We took almost half an hour to very slowly caramelize these onions. Okay. And then they're in there with a little bit of Brie. But this is the one right here. This is the ultimate.
Okay. What's
So-
in this one?
Might sound a little bit weird, but we actually put mayonnaise on the outside
Okay.
and then crusted it in Parmesan cheese. And you can see, at home, look at that beautiful crust. So the mayo acts like glue. It helps it to stick onto it.
Yep.
And then on the inside, there's 4 different cheeses. Let's see if I can remember them. We've got Swiss, we have Gruyere, Cheddar, and something else. It'll have to be a mystery because I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
I cooked every one of them in this cast iron skillet here. One of the things I love about cast iron is it hold on to its heat really well.
Yep.
And I love this induction range that you have up here for me to use, because the coolest thing about using this induction is that the heating is so precise. I'm sure you saw me a bunch of times come over and press the button, but grilled cheese is one of those things. If you heat it up too hot, too fast, you're gonna burn the outside before your cheese actually gets a point.
Melted.
Yeah, before it gets melted, exactly. And if you go too slow, well then, nobody wants to wait for grilled cheese because we need to eat it.
Well, you said this takes a little while with the onions, okay? I'm not sure if I can wait a half hour with the onions.
See, that's the thing. So you'll have to, I'll make them ahead of time and you can buy them.
Okay.
All right. But speaking of eating, let's get to eating.
Well, before we get into this,
Yeah.
I understand you won an international award. Tell me
I
about
did.
it. Tell
I
the
won.
audience about it. We want to hear about it.
I won, I was honored to be selected as the runner-up, actually, for this international award that Cisco and the Center for the Advancement of Food Service Education put on. So it was a runner-up for the Educator of the Year award.
Where was this located?
So I went up to Niagara Falls, and there was a conference. It was a 3-day conference. It was awesome. I came back inspired with a bunch of ideas, but there was a little ceremony up there, so it was really cool.
You're going to put those ideas to work on the next few shows.
They're already at work,
All
right?
right.
All right.
Let's start with the dip.
So yeah, I would say just grab one and go ahead and dip it right in there.
Oh, nothing better than dipping into it.
Right.
Tomato soup.
No, that's it. It's just basic. It's just comfort food.
Yeah.
I can remember as a kid, sitting around the table, we'd sit down with a loaf of bread, thing of tomato soup, and a whole stick of butter. And we'd have the toaster, and we'd do toast strips. We never even used a spoon. Anyways,
Okay.
all right,
Which one are we going to go here?
let's do this
One
one.
with the onion.
So this is a caramel. I'm gonna cut it just to make our life a little easier and so we don't
yeah.
make a mess of
We gotta-
ourselves.
We got to taste all these. And
That's
we're
right.
gonna be full by the time we get to the last one.
So there you go. There's a man-sized bite.
That's delicious. That is really delicious.
So the brie melts really well. It's a really interesting texture. So this guy here, so we used raw apple. I didn't cook them because I wanted them to still have a little bit of crunch. So let's see if they still have a little bit of crunch. So I'll take the one that fell apart. You don't have to take that whole bite down.
Smoked flavored. You know, I don't really like anything that's smoked.
Yep.
This is delicious.
Well, this is that, and I love because you get a blast of saltiness from the ham and the smoky. That's great. Then let's tear into the ultimate here. We'll move that out of the way.
4 different cheeses.
Actually 5 if you include the one that's on the outside.
Oh, yeah.
But it should, when we break it apart, you can see the cheese kind of just stretching there. And that's that mozzarella as you pull it apart.
This is good. This is good. Now that's
Wicked good.